Hey there, my name is David Rogers, and I want to welcome you to the Nashville Jazz Workshop's Artist Spotlight, where every month I get the chance to sit down with a handful of artists with upcoming performances at the legendary Jazz Cave in Nashville, Tennessee. We get to dive into a bit of jazz history while also learning about each artist's process of preparing for their upcoming show. This week, I sat down with one of Nashville's most sought-after and respected musicians and artists, Mike Hicks, ahead of his Nashville Jazz Workshop debut performance this Friday, May 31st. We talked about some of his earliest experiences with jazz and how he thinks about the thread that connects all of Black American music. Mike gave us a glimpse into how fatherhood has given him a new perspective on his artistry and even on some of his own songs from the past. And he shed some light on how Friday's show will be unique to any other show he's done before. I hope you enjoy. Mike, thank you so much for being here, man.
David, it's a pleasure to be here, brother. Thank you for having me. Good to see you.
Of course. It's good to see you. I'm really looking forward to May 31st.
Yes, sir.
At the Nashville Jazz. The first time you'll be playing at the Nashville Jazz Workshop.
First time.
For those who may not know, because it is your first time at the workshop, I mean, most of Nashville knows, but for the 1% who doesn't, how would you characterize or describe yourself and your music?
Man, my music stems from my own personal experience. And so I, as an artist, my music is very personal. I'll say that.
Okay.
And part of that, I mean, the vast majority of that personal experience stems in Black music and the African American experience.
Yeah.
And so there is a Blackness to what I do.
Yeah.
that's unapologetic, but also I tend to try to do things in a way that's educational and inspiring as well.
Yeah.
And so there's a little influence you'll hear of blues, R&B, jazz, gospel, a little bit of all of those things for sure.
Yeah. You grew up in church.
Yes, sir.
So there is an undeniable influence that gospel music has had on your music.
For sure.
There's an undeniable experience that R&B, that's how I know D'Angelo has influenced you.
Favorite artist.
Yeah. Who are some, or what is some of the, if we can even parse it out, because it is Black American music at the end of the day, and it's just one long lineage that continues. But among the jazz, or more, you could say, improvisational music, not to take anything away from any other genre, how would you characterize some of the influence of jazz or that improvisational spirit in your music?
Oh man, that's easy. There's a common thread that runs through a good bit of Black music. And so in jazz, it is improvisation, the ability to be in the moment and create in the moment. In gospel music, that same thread is defined or called following the Spirit. It's the same thing of sitting in a church service and whatever your agenda or plan is, somebody stands up and is led by the Spirit to go elsewhere, then we move as the Spirit leads. In R&B settings, it's the notion and the concept of vibing. It's like, man, we'll catch a vibe and see where it goes, which is where a lot of the modern vernacular would be like a lot of the sheds go.
Sure.
I'll never forget there was a time a few years ago before Jill Scott moved down here.
Okay.
They were performing, and maybe the night before their performance, her band and a number of the players in town, we all got up at this church, and it was a shed where you just play and you vibe and things happen, and the magic happens of somebody plays a chord that leads us elsewhere. And it's just a thread that happens through Black music. And so the jazz element of that is something that resonates, with me, even having not spent as much time playing jazz, but it's something that I appreciate. And so when I listen to an Oscar Peterson, or when I listen to Art Tatum, those are things that I have an appreciation for beyond a desire to recreate.
Yeah.
I can sit and listen and enjoy it for what it is, especially knowing that that moment is specific and particular to that moment. So whatever happens in that moment, that's what that is. And so even as a performer, that has become an element that has defined who I am. If you come to one of my shows, it's definitely the show for that day and that day alone.
Yes.
Like it won't be the same thing the next time around. May not be the same configuration. I'm not one to use stems or pre-recorded tracks. And so it's kind of, and sometimes we're not always on a click. Sometimes the tempo is defined by what that day felt like.
Sure.
or whatever else. So I've been asked a number of times, do I play jazz gigs and jazz sessions? I think because the influence is so strong
Mm.
or the influence is so evident,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one that flows through all of black music.
Yeah. Can you remember the first time that you heard an Oscar Peterson record or Art Tatum or someone you might characterize as a jazz artist?
Yeah,
growing
100%.
up?
100% for sure. Funny enough, my father introduced me to a lot of different types of music. So there was always different things playing, whether it was, of course, gospel music. So
Yeah.
Walter Hawkins and
Yeah.
Commission and the Winans and Clark Sisters, all that stuff.
Yeah.
My mama was always listening to gospel music as well.
Mm-hmm.
My dad would also listen to like Keiko Matsui
Oh, yeah.
and Yanni.
Yeah.
So like that ethereal stuff.
Sure.
Just all kind of things.
Uh-huh.
And so I'd hear little things here or there. Bob James.
Yeah.
I strongly remember hearing some of those things that would resonate with me when I heard them later on in hip hop.
Mm.
It's like, oh wait, I know that song.
Wow.
When I was in high school, I went on a church trip to New Orleans.
Okay.
I'll never forget walking up and down the street and hearing almost stereotypical what you would see in a movie is, this is jazz.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. This
Yeah.
is crazy. And so on that trip, I just bought stuff.
Mm.
Like I went and I was buying cassettes at the time and went to a store and asked a guy like, hey man, I like the piano and I'm starting to get into the piano. What should I buy? What should I listen to?
Yeah.
And it was, in the first two was some Art Tatum and Oscar Peterson stuff. And
Wow.
it was the most incredible but discouraging thing
Okay.
I
I was
like,
gonna say, if you start with those two.
I was like, how do you, at the time I could not even process, like I enjoyed it,
Yeah.
but it was so much, it was information overload
Right.
that it's like, I'll never be able to do this. Still feel the same
Yeah,
way.
me too. It's still information overload.
Yeah.
This is the first time at the NJW.
Mm-hmm.
This is also your first show in over a year, I think.
Yes, sir.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, part of that reason is because you're now a dad.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Without question.
How has this new role, responsibility, shaped you as an artist?
Man, first of all, it's changed my capacity and willingness to do certain things. Like, in order to get me out the house, it has to be worth it.
Yeah.
And I've always stressed kind of an importance, but I've also tried to differentiate between payment and reward.
Mm.
And there are certain things that if the payment is not going to be extraordinary, then it must be rewarding in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it even being a father helps define that even more.
Oh, yes.
I'm not leaving the house and leaving my daughter and leaving my wife for anything that's not worth that time in either reward or payment,
Mm-hmm.
The word my wife would use is boundaries. It's helped establish some boundaries.
Yeah.
And then it's made artistry a bit challenging in a way that I appreciate because I'm not as frivolous with my time.
Mm-hmm.
Like now I look back and like, what in the world was I doing with the time that I had?
Yeah.
I spend so much time trying to live in each moment with my daughter that I haven't. Like, it's difficult to pull away sometimes and do the artist thing, especially now, considering how much the industry has changed.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, if I go spend, let's just throw a random number out there. If I go spend $15,000 to record a record, knowing that selling albums isn't the means by which that money is going to be recouped, it kind of causes a pause and
Sure.
is this the time to spend that money on a record? Or it changes the degree of focus of, okay, you know what? These things may be worth doing. I just have to be focused and intentional on how I'm doing it. But it's also, at the same time, put a fire in me that I want to get as much stuff out, as much stuff recorded to leave to my daughter. Nobody ever thinks that anything's going to happen to them. And so, that's not something that I believe will happen. But in the event that for some reason I'm not here, I do want her to have a clear picture of, this is my dad, this is my dad's legacy, this is my dad's work, this is who he was. I will say the second easiest way to get to know who I am, with the first being just talking to me.
Yeah.
But the second easiest way is definitely dive into the music. It's all there, probably to my detriment. Maybe. I don't know, but it's all there.
Are there songs that you have written since she's been born, or even pieces of songs or things that you've revisited?
Oh my goodness. So I've not written the specific song for her yet.
Yeah.
I know it's there.
Yep.
I do have who knows how many voice memos on my phone of pieces of things.
Yeah.
But she has definitely influenced the way I view things that I've written beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And she's influenced the way I hear things that I've always loved. Like when I listen to Bill Withers' A Lovely Day, it was always a favorite song of mine just for the groove. And, you know, it's a feel-good song and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
The lyrics now take me out completely. Like I'm just, every time I listen to it, I'm in tears.
Wow.
Grooving in tears.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about my daughter, you know.
Yeah.
And so there are things of mine that I've written in times past that I look at now and I'm like, oh, wow, this hits me in a different way now.
Wow.
This show is curated in a way that there are sections, and I didn't really realize this until last night when I was looking at the set list.
Yeah.
There's a section of it that is dedicated to some of the more influential women in my life. So there's a song about my mother that's a favorite of mine that I never get through without crying. So just give you that heads up right now. That's probably not going to change. Song about my grandmother. I'm doing a song that I've never played out, that no one's ever heard, that my wife actually named, and it came off of an experience that we had previously in our marriage. And so those things, considering those women and the influence that they had, now when I look at my daughter, it resonates differently.
Yeah.
You know, and so there are a number of things that I'm doing for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talk a little bit about, I mean, the 99% who does know you is going to be familiar with the what you might call the typical Mike Hicks experience, which is a big rhythm section, full rhythm section, with sometimes with horns, sometimes with strings, sometimes with BGV, sometimes with all of the above.
Right.
We don't have quite that amount of stage space on Friday. So you're working within some, let's call them creative limitations.
Yeah.
Maybe speak to some of the other things that might be unique, including personnel.
Yeah, for sure. I'll start right there. Personnel is unique for me in this, in that, to your point, I am very comfortable within a 17-piece configuration. And that's such a special thing that means so much to me that it feels weird not having that. But it's 5 of us. I'll be on keys. My brother Tyrus Sass will be on organ. Mm-hmm. Josh Reynolds will be on drums, who's played for me since, I guess, 2018, 2017, something like that.
Yeah.
And then on bass, I've got a young man named Philip Sforza, and on guitar, Chris Collier. And neither of them have played with me before in this capacity.
Yeah.
We've played together in church settings. And then Chris has played with me for another artist that I have been working with, producing and playing with for a little while now. It's a country artist named Paulina Jane.
Great.
But in terms of this scenario, I love for there to be something that is challenging, something that kind of forces me to not be comfortable. And so having this personnel change for this show does exactly that. I would be far more comfortable with all 17 of us. And so it's already a challenge with it just being 5 of us as opposed to 17.
Yeah.
And then also a different configuration of players. Mm-hmm. And I'm used to leaning on background vocals. I'm used to leaning on strings and horns. A big difference is I'm going to play a lot more than, I mean, I'm always playing in my stuff for sure. Yeah. I'm carrying a heavier load in terms of playing. And then I'm also playing a number of things by myself. Maybe, I'd have to check, maybe half the set.
Right.
Which is just absolutely terrifying and frightening. So we'll see. I enjoy a good challenge, and this will be one for sure. Mm-hmm. Like we were talking about earlier, this is definitely its own show. Yeah. And so if you feel like you've seen a Mike Hicks show at Third and Lindsley or the Tracking Room or Analog or whatever, this is not that.
Yeah. What is one thing that you are most looking forward to about Friday?
The first song. First song in the set.
Say no more.
I'm trying to see if I can pull it off.
Yeah.
If I can pull it off, then I feel like we'll be in a good place And if not, I may have to do a little work to get back in your good graces. But,
No.
no, I think I'm excited about that, and I'm super excited that my dad will be there.
Wow.
That's a big deal.
Yes.
He and my mom are my biggest and earliest influences, and so for him to be there is always a big deal for me.
Well, man, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, man.
Man, thank you for having me. I appreciate the Nashville Jazz Workshop for providing the opportunity and the space. I'm looking forward to it.